I'd like to thank everyone for attending today's session. My name is Marie Sweeney, and I work with the cannabis license experts up in the Canadian side of the operation. So I'm also very excited to learn what Tony and Amber have to share with us about the Alabama market today. We'll start with Amber Bloss. If you'd like to kind of introduce yourself and give an overview of what you and the organization do, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritties.
Yes, hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Bloss. I'm kind of a compliance expert in the cannabis industry and work on licensing predominantly as we shift towards a less competitive market and less licensing. We'll be moving to compliance issues in general, manufacturing issues. But I've been in the cannabis industry since 2016. I've worked on probably 15 different states. And so I'm, thrilled to be here today to talk about Alabama.
Excellent. And Tony, would you like to give us a little bit of an overview of yourself and Sapphire?
Sure. My name is Tony Gallo. I'm the managing partner of Sapphire Risk Advisory Group. We are the oldest national security consulting company in the United States. We've been in the cannabis industry going on our 10th year. We worked with about 600 cannabis clients in 35 states, currently working with 6 clients in the Alabama market on their application process. And we focus on the security sections of the application, as well as building out facilities across the United States and the day-to-day security standard operating procedures.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we're going to start with Amber. If you want to give us maybe 5 to 10 minutes of some of your insights into the industry, and then we'll get to some questions for yourself, and then we'll follow with Tony.
Okay. Sounds great. What I did is reviewed all the materials from the Alabama Medical Marijuana Commission, and I have some interesting insights, I hope, for you that are joining. But let's go over the basics right now, which is only medical marijuana at this time is legal in the state of Alabama, and only flowers and oils will be sold. No cannabis infused food or other items. And it's going to be limited to qualifying patients. But the list is substantial. You can tell that Alabama really, I think, did a good job at learning from some of the shortcomings of, the earlier states that went from medical to recreational. So their list is extensive. It will probably grow over time, but I think a good amount of people will qualify to get medical marijuana in Alabama. Now, if you're with us here today, you're either in or out of the application process already, because beginning October 17th, the state asked individuals and entities to submit requests for an application, and that closed on the 24th, and then those were sent to those people. So those people have their applications in hand and are beginning the arduous task of drafting their forms and so forth. So the state has said that they received 607 requests for application. And so as far as I could tell, the odds are going to be, decent in this state compared to some other first offerings in other states. So the integrated facility, which is a license for all the processes from cultivation, processing, transportation, testing. It's an all-in-one license. They had 133 applicants, requests for applications, and 5 of those hopefully will secure licenses. Cultivators, 124, processors, 35, dispensary, 239. The secured transporters and the lab licensees, there's no limit to those. So if they qualify, if they pass the application process, they will then get their license, which is great. So 69 transporters and 7 testing laboratories. The integrated licenses, there'll be 5 of them, and each of those 5 will be able to operate 5 dispensary sites. Cultivators, there'll be no more than 12, processors, no more than 4, dispensing no more than 4 with 3 sites each. And again, transportation labs is no limit. What you should know going in is that the dispensaries, in order to pick a site for your dispensary, you need to check the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission website for the list of municipalities who have entered ordinances permitting those dispensaries to be at that location. Right now, there's quite a list, and those ordinances are linked to those cities that are listed. So be sure that your area is approved by the local ordinance. Once you receive your information, the deadline for the application is December 30th. So you have a good amount of time to complete it, but there is a lot to do. So you will submit the application on the portal, and there's a very reasonable fee of $2,500 to apply. There are page limits, which I think is always good when you're working on drafting an application, because there aren't page limits. You just kind of throw in the kitchen sink and everything that you can. And so page limits are listed in the application guidance documents. Once you submit your application, if you need to amend it for some reason, you get one opportunity to do so within the before the deadline of December 30th, but it does come along with a fee if you have to make a change. And your reports of deficiency reports will be sent to you on February 13th. And those you'll be able to send back a proposal to fix those deficiencies. But if the question is pass or fail, if you fail, that's not a deficiency. If you fail a pass or fail question, you are ineligible to be awarded a license. So that's important. Okay. The Alabama did a great job in their residency requirements. Maybe not everyone in the nation will agree, but for those that were in the cannabis industry early and really support those local people getting their, the first opportunity to grow the cannabis industry within their state, they did a great job. The majority owner has to have a residency in Alabama with a back residency of 15 years. So, wow. Yeah, so it's a very, very strong requirement, and I congratulate them on that, because I think that will really help people get some ownership of the cannabis industry in their state. I'm very excited about that. Each applicant can only apply for one category at this time period. State and federal background checks will be asked for the people listed on the application, which is people that have financial interests, owners, people of the board, shareholders, and that's pretty common. Now to the social equity program, it's both good and bad. It is good that they are putting aside a certain percentage of licenses to minority-owned businesses or individuals. It has to be majority owned by a minority group of people. It's defined as individuals of African American, Native American, Asian, or Hispanic descent. And 1/4 of all licenses for cultivators have to go to this group of people. And at least 1/5 of all licenses for integrated facilities will have to go to this group of people. So that's pretty strong. And I hope that works out well in people's favor. But their ineligibility standards will rule out some people that maybe the cannabis industry wants to include. And that is they're very strict on no felonies or even misdemeanors that involved a controlled substance. But if you've had your record expunged, that's okay. Or if you've appealed it and it's been dropped, that's okay. But for the past 10 years, if you've had a misdemeanor in cannabis, you won't be able to be on the application. So that's a shame. The positives, now I kind of looked over all the states and how they compare. Some of the tougher issues of people starting out is because this is the first time that people in Alabama are able to participate in this process. And so there will be very little experience, practical experience in this industry. So the tough thing will be you have to show authorization for each property site that you intend to build or use. So people are going to have to be getting those letters and statements from property owners or banks and ensuring that they have the right to use that property before you submit your application. So you're going to be mad running around looking for that. Many states break up the state into areas so that they can kind of control that everyone has a reasonable access to the medical cannabis. And so they'll be like, we're going to put 4 dispensaries in this area, 3 in this area, and they didn't do that. So you might end up with a lot of applicants in the same concentrated area, which may burden access to other areas of the state. So they may choose down the line to add a couple qualifying applicants if they're in an area that isn't, represented in the pool of winners. I hope they do that so everyone can have access. Of course, the very strong residency requirement is much different than other states. Like New Jersey only has a 2-year residency requirement. And yeah, let's see. Again, the equity program I think is decent. They don't include women in that category. So I hope down the line they consider women ownership as a minority and include women in that qualification. The guidance materials are very, very, very strong. So it talks about scoring, average, very strong documents in the guidance. So if you are drafting a license, I recommend looking at the points, looking how they're weighed, and spend the most time on the biggest scoring sections and be sure they're right. But they're just go down the line. They're very strong guidance materials. The application questions are very, very straightforward. It's going to be a long application and it's very thorough, but it's most of the same concepts and questions you'd see it in any other state. So if you have questions, a lot of states will post their winning applications, and you can always go to New Jersey website or any other state, and they may be redacted, they may not. But if you have questions on how much do they want for the policy procedures, how you can get some really good ideas on strong applications from other states. Of course, just make sure that you're answering the questions of your state. And also the application fee is very reasonable for beginners. Hopefully it's reasonable for beginners. It's $2,500, and that's the strength of this application. Once you win a license, then you'd have to pay the licensing fee within 14 days. I just wanted to mention 2 other quick things that I saw is that there is a community engagement plan, which is pretty common, and an environmental impact statement, which is common. Exhibit 11 is, this is an example from the cultivator. Exhibit 11 might be challenging. It's the evidence of business relationship with other licensees and prospective licensees. So right now there are no licensees currently because this is the first round. Applicant must provide copies of contracts, contingent contracts, memorandum of understanding between themselves and any processors, secure transporters, dispensaries, integrated facilities, and testing laboratory. So that might be a challenge because there aren't any current licenses, and applicants may just have to work together. I'm not sure how the state is going to grade that. And the other thing I think might be challenging for beginners, or not even beginners, all the people applying are going to be very strong in their area, business, corporate knowledge, finances, etc. farmers, hopefully. But in Exhibit 14, for instance, you have to show machinery and equipment within the site. And that's kind of different. Sometimes you can kind of propose or have some kind of idea, but they want sales contracts, receipts, lease agreement, or documentation demonstrating possessory interest in the machine and equipment. So the operations manual of all the equipment and machinery for this one in cultivation. And that's a very unusual question. And so please don't forget that. You might want to start on that right away. Mark categories that are really, really challenging, and make sure you kind of zero in, pretty quick on those first.
Okay. That is an extensive overview of a lot of the considerations that everyone attending today is going to need to be extra aware of. I don't want to cut you off, but we are going to circle back so that Tony can get into the nitty-gritty of the security requirements, and then we can also tackle some of the questions that are coming in through today. So, Tony, take it away.
Thank you. No, Amber, from what you're saying, and your presentation just now, I think the overwhelming factor of what I've seen, and like I said, we've been doing this for 10 years nationwide and done 35 states. And you look every year and you look at what is a requiring application and what's not. So currently right now, I think there's 9 or 10 states in play with application processes. Like for, New Jersey, where we have over 130 clients, but then you look at Alabama where we have 6 clients, and you kind of wonder why that is. And I think if you ask my opinion, right now the Alabama application or the Alabama license is the golden ticket this year of all the applications. The requirements are very similar to, say, a Florida application might be, more so than a Mississippi application. If you look at Mississippi's application and compare it to Alabama, it's night and day. Oklahoma being another low entry state, but that's because the value of those licenses in those states are lower than they would be for Alabama. So with that in mind, it's very there's a lot of well-established companies. Some of these Alabama clients have been working on this process for over a year already, and to be able to identify and produce an application that is going to be scored and graded in such a low number of licenses issued. California, might give out, 50 licenses. Oklahoma and Mississippi may not have any barrier. I think you hit on a couple of points that we need to understand. And one of the key words that I wrote down is the hardest application to do is a pass and fail, in my opinion. I haven't done them. And simply because unlike a metric where they score it, say Illinois, they scored it. The most you can get is 252 points. Whoever got X amount of points would get a license. And a pass and fail model, you either, as you say, either pass and move on to the next question or the next part of the application, or you fail and you're out. There's no, New Jersey has what's called a cure, where they send it back to you and say, okay, you can fix it and send it back. So you have to make sure that this application that you're submitting on December 30th is the best that you possibly can. There's no issues. And there's some security that came into play that, as we're looking through this application, that's interesting. And like you said, following the guidelines of the state, they're going to ask a question you want to pose. If one of the questions being guards, you need to have guards during business hours. So you need to make sure that is being recognized, because that could be a big miss on your part with that. You need to make sure that you're explaining the proper security signage. One of the things that has come into that is unusual in Alabama is the fact that you have to audio anything that goes on in the facility, which is not the norm in most states. But Alabama's a 2-party consent state. So one-party consent state, where you need then to make sure that you you communicate that in some sort of signage that there'll be an audio while they're in there, and there'll be video while they're in there. The other thing is a requirement about having radios. That's not something you see in most states. And again, having making sure that the employees have radios or communication is something that in an application that you would not see in Mississippi or in Florida or New Jersey or New York or whatever. And same thing with the requirements when it comes to a door. They've signified a 3-inch steel door. So a lot of people will miss that in their writing of the application, and that's where I think that the challenge in Alabama is there's some specific guidelines that the state of Alabama is asking for that if you don't see that during the application review that you're doing and you don't identify, let's take the doors, if you don't identify that you'll be using 3-inch steel doors, well, that's going to be a miss. Even if you put, we will be using strong doors, or we will be using metal doors or anything of that nature, when they're grading it, they're not going to be looking. They want to see you put down 3-inch doors. They want to see you put audio and sound in there, and that there'll be radios. One of the requirements for the external walls is that they have to be reinforced. So how are you going to communicate that in your application of how the walls are going to be reinforced, and what are you going to use? Are you going to use wire meshing? Are you going to use 3/4 inch plywood? Is it going to be cinder block? Again, all of those come into the components of the application. And, again, with the takeaway of the application itself is you're going to be going up against other people who are buying for this license, and making sure that your application stands out, especially when it comes to the security, which is what we focus on, but even community relations. A question that we've been kicking around with our current 6 clients is how are we going to communicate that? Getting that buy-in from the city is paramount, and a lot of times there's a miss when it comes to that. Do you have, New Jersey calls it the letter of resolution. Other states have approval from the municipality or from the community. But how are you going to communicate in your application that you have contacted a town in Alabama, and that town has accepted the fact that if you do get a license, you can open up your location, whatever that might be, in that town? Is that something that you're going to be putting in that application? And communicating that, or is that something that the state's going to see as a miss? Again, the challenge in Alabama when it comes to the application is it is the first round. It is the first time they've done this in the state, and we've been in some states where they understand and they learn from their mistakes. The application changes. If you did Pennsylvania, I think they're in their 3rd or 4th round, and you look at their application in Pennsylvania in the 1st round compared to where they are now, it's definitely different. New Jersey's on their 4th round of applications, and it's drastically different.
Yeah.
Yeah, New York is drastically different from the last one they did in 2014 or 2015 to where they are right now, and they're going on. The same thing like you'll see with Alabama. And the key is kind of understanding what that state looks for. So, the security has to be really involved. We're focusing on the security plan, the SOP, the engineering plan, and all that. But like you said, I looked at you called it Exhibit 11. I think Exhibit 14 is that relationship with other people applying. Is that something that your team is looking at, and how do you go about getting that and including that, and how significant is that going to be during the scoring process? Again, when I say the scoring process, you look at some states like Missouri. When Missouri did their application round, there were people that lost by less than 1% of the total score. So a lot of times you'll get a new people, especially like in Alabama markets, who will focus on 10 of the 11 sections that they should be looking at, or 20 of the 21 exhibits that they should be looking at, and missing that one exhibit completely, just not even understanding it, not explaining it, and that one exhibit will cost them their eligibility to get the license. So, a lot of high level reviews from the application. The security is kind of a standard in a lot of ways of security. You want to have a good security plan. The state is very focused on how you're going to protect the assets and the employees and the customers and clients, the patients of the town, of there. What kind of retail awareness programs, robbery awareness, cash management programs you're going to have. What kind of physical securities, the video, access control, the alarm systems. Every floor plan needs to have those designs. The importance of where you're going to place your secure storage facility and a dispensary. Where will that vault be? At night, will that product be removed and put into the vault? And I think from a security point of view, one of the tips that I would give you is you have to write to who your audience is. And if the state of Alabama says that every employee must wear a blue shirt, then you need to write that every employee will wear a blue shirt. I see a lot of times where lawyers will get involved and it'll cost them points because the lawyer or whoever that might be may be writing that the every employee will wear a shirt that's similar to blue. Could be an aqua color shirt, or it could be a sapphire color shirt, and that's not what the state is looking for, and that could cost you the valuable points there. So again, when you look at the security plan from a high level, and then we'll open up to some questions. Very important that you identify your community, that the community is supporting you. We already had have calls into some chief of police to talk to them about some retail locations. Does the security meet all the regulations of Alabama? Do you have a good security floor plan design? What does your security plan look like in your exhibit if it's 19, or your SOPs in exhibit 15? And how are you going to communicate to the state of Alabama? This is the key point, that you deserve it. From my end, that you deserve it because you have identified all of the security needs that you can communicate to the state. So really, that's kind of where I wanted to take the conversation when it comes to security. They spell it out in a lot of the guidelines, the communication. You need a fence if you're a cultivator. So you would write that you're going to have a fence. You wouldn't write that you're not going to have a fence, or you wouldn't write that anything about that fence. So it really kind of going through the application when it comes to security is to make sure that you take all those points and those key points, but really writing a story about why you're better than the other 600 applicants and why you deserve that license really is the distinguishing factor of whether you're going to get a license in Alabama or not. So, Maria, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Security, I know, is one of the most daunting portions of the application process because it is very new to a lot of people, especially when we're looking at a new state and new regulations. So I wanted to touch on just a couple questions that Dylan has come through the LinkedIn here. And I'm going to leave it to either of you to decide who is the best person to answer each of these two questions. But one, how do I start a CBD business in Alabama, and do I need a license for that?
Amber, I'm going to leave you with that one.
Yes, you can start as far as I know, the Farming Bill of 2018 under Trump legalized hemp federally. What regulations your state falls under is up to your state. If your state did not want to create their own regulations, then they are then following the federal regulations that are in place through the farming bill. But I think almost most states, not every state, just check your state. But what you want to look for is the hemp program. CBD that contains THC, not Delta 9, will be under the cannabis regulations, which is what we're talking about today. CBD that you're finding in products throughout the country right now are hemp. because cannabis products cannot be sold across interstate because it's still federally criminalized. So if you want hemp CBD, you most definitely can do that. Just check your state hemp program.
Okay. And one more, just to throw in some challenging questions for you both today. Do I need a license to sell Delta 8 in Alabama? And how do I become a distributor of that?
I don't think you would need a hemp license. You would need a license in whatever format Alabama has voted legal. You would need to get a distributing license for hemp.
Okay.
Delta 8 would be a hemp byproduct.
Okay. Now I have a personal question. How does Alabama separate CBD derived from what is considered a cannabis plant and CBD that is derived from a hemp plant? CBD is CBD.
Well,
once it gets down to its isolated form.
Well, it'd be based on its laboratory results. If it contains over 0.03% of THC Delta 9.
Okay.
I believe is the standard, yeah.
Is how they're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, let me just see. I don't want to take up too many people's time, but this looks like it's a little bit more of an in-depth one. Patient drawings. Okay, so this is, I think, a little bit more directed towards Tony, but this particular requirement from the Cultivation Application Guide, Exhibit 17, a detailed plan and elevation drawings of all operational areas involved in the production of cannabis plants. This should include dimensions and elevation reference to a single facility benchmark, elevation drawings of all operational areas. Do they want a 2D elevation drawing showing the inside of these grow rooms?
So from what I'm seeing, you're going to need an architect in Alabama to design this, and that the 2D, although I don't see that a necessary point, you do need to show all the dimensions and the elevation in that architectural drawing of that floor plan. If you wanted to see an example of a cultivation, if you went to sapphirerisk.com, there's a section that shows floor plan designs. It can kind of give you an idea of what the state's going to be looking for. So the answer really is more of not a 2D, but you do need an architectural drawing of your floor plan to present to the state. You wouldn't need that in some other states, let's put it that way.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to keep this as the last question. 30 seconds to both of you to kind of give your insight onto each. We'll start with Amber. What is the best way to put together a pitch to the state that you deserve to be the person that is chosen, and how do you make that story great?
Well, when you're looking at the scoring documents, I would first just make sure, as Tony said, that you check every box with the regulations that are applicable, okay, from Alabama. But don't forget the EPA, don't forget the municipality waterways and different codes, building codes. There's a lot of different regulations that go into that. And agricultural regulations will tell you what kind of cultivars are approved. So those are just, they're going to check mark it. Do you have it? Do you not have it? But as Tony said, it's the pieces that are more vague, like community engagement, where there's no regulations outlining what is expected. You really have to get in that community and find out what they want in their town and what they need. And those are going to be the places where it's going to be win or lose. If there is a tie, the state said they'll do like within 1%. So you could be the winning one, but if there's one within 1% of you, they're gonna decide a lottery, a tiebreaker, or some other thing that's gonna pick which one of you is the winner. So on those vague areas, that's where you want to be creative and tell your story. Okay.
And Tony?
So you're going to look at this application process, and if you look at it in percentages, let's say 600 people are applying, and not all of them for your license, but let's just take a number, and let's say 100 people are applying, so it makes my math a lot easier for me. There's going to be a percentage of the people that are going to be just blow it out of the box. This is what they do for a living. They have the money, they have the resources, and they're going to be grabbing some of those licenses because this is what they do, and they're going to outspend the majority of the people, and they're going to grab some of that license, and they know how to work the process. Like I said, there is a process to winning a license. There's also going to be a percentage of people that are going to do horrible. They're just going to come in, think they know it all, and they're going to apply, and out of a possible let's say 1,000 points, they score 50. It's like putting your name on a test, and that's about the extent of what they're going to do. That middle core is really where the majority of these 600 people are going to need to look into. And the way that I found that you win a license in any state is you tell your story. Why is your story any better? If I'm going to be doing an application and I fall in that middle, let's take something easy, and it says to me that you're required to have a fence. Well, everybody in the middle is going to put, I'm going to have a fence. So you're not going to beat anybody else out by having a fence or ensuring you have a guard or making sure you have radios or the door is going to be 3 inches, because everyone in that middle is going to be doing that anyway. What you need to do is you need to explain to the state why, as part of a community, either you're a resident of Alabama for a period of time, your history goes back 100 years, you've lived in this town, the city loves you, Bessemer wants you to come in, and the key is a couple cheap things, or a couple, you don't want to say I've donated to a community, because you don't want to say I'm trying to buy my way in. You want to say I'm doing this with the community. We're doing, like in New Jersey, we do expungement programs. Or we'll do trash pickup, or we'll do something with the park. It's more important for you to be doing those things than actually saying we donated $10,000 to the youth foundation or something like that. And that's kind of where that's where you're going to win your license. Either you're going to be really good at what you do or really bad, and the majority of the people that are on this call don't fall into either one of those categories. You're going to be the ones in the middle, and that's really the key of winning a license in Alabama.
Excellent. Thank you both very much. I'm just going to do a quick recap, and if I put my foot in my mouth, please correct me. But what we're looking at is ensuring that you are following those application guidelines step by step. You are putting equal weight to all of the exhibits, that you're treating this like a marathon and not a race, that you are going to check off all those boxes as it's a pass or fail. Not a lot of room for making those mistakes, so you don't want to race through any of those kind of check marks. Give them what they want. Don't give them too much where they're going to ask more questions or possibly get confused in what you are saying. Like Tony was saying, with the lawyer speak may not be the best way to get your point across. And then social and community engagement, so that you have the support of the community that you are looking at opening your business in.
Yep. Sounds good.
Perfect.
Excellent. All right. I'm just going to let everybody know that is watching, if we didn't get to your questions, if you want to email info@Cannabis License Experts, we will get those off to the appropriate people and get you those responses. And as soon as this is finished recording, the entire thing will be available on our LinkedIn event page under the post event. So anybody who wants to review or share this with a colleague, a friend, or a family member they want to talk into this industry, please do so. And we are continually here to answer anyone's questions through our website, our engagement, and our telephone numbers, and our fabulous partners.
Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.
Bye.